Malicious compliance to a bank's arrogant savings plan. Apologies for not being very succinct, but TLDR at the end. Had to deal with a bank today and got pretty mad with their stupid procedures and bureaucracy. Not the people that served me. I literally started thinking about petty compliance to one of the topics and how well banks have protected themselves with legal documents, and I remembered this golden story from my grandfather. May he rest in peace. Couple clarifications. A. We'll use the symbol dollar when referring to money for ease, but this is on a local currency. B. The story is a fairly long way back in time. C. Back then salaries, monthly, would range between $170 up to $350. Stretching the upper end a bit. The story. So my grandfather was at a point in his life, with a wife and couple of young kids, settled in an apartment and was working in a factory and painting houses. He was working more than 2 8-hour jobs, 6 days a week to provide as well as save money for the future and for the kids. And as it ended up, the grandkids as well. So with about a double income, he was managing to put some money on the side each month. He had gone to one of the local banks and opened up a savings account with a healthy interest. Different times, he put in some money, about $5,000, and left it to grow. A year later he went in put in some more money and start a new plan for another year, and the guy told him to go with one of their new plans where the interest was 2.5%, up from under 2% on the normal end of year paying plan he had. And this new plan was paying every day the interest, as well as he could add money each month, instead of once a year, before starting a new plan. According to Grandpa, even the fine print didn't seem to have any negatives. So he went with it. About $7,000 at that point. 34 months go by and he goes in to add some money to the account and asks for the account movements to be updated. Back then, you had a booklet that they put in an old style printer and it would add only what was not already printed. Brand new tech back then. He gets his printout and it is 4 months of daily plus $0 interest added. When you do the math, 7000, 0.025, 365, you get about $48 per day. That was not being paid. He asked why after 4 months of daily payments, his deposit was still the same, and the clerk smirked back that the amount was too small. The system was not calculating cents, just whole numbers. So with his amount being $7K, his daily payment was $48 rounded to $0. He went to the director of the bank office and mentioned everything together with the fact that for over 100 days the bank had been keeping for itself 50 cents per day, and how was that allowed? Because it was robbing the customers, and the director just responded with, "In our bank, individual officials have the right to operate semi-independently. This is why we are able to offer such a competitive interest rate. Whilst our bank doesn't offer it officially, we are allowed to set some rules for ourselves. If you don't like, feel free to change your position." Single quote. Change your position meaning not be so poor. According to my grandfather, he was furious and just stood up and left. Went back home and read all the fine prints of the contract again, only to find that information so vaguely written that it could have been talking about weather temperature calculations. The malicious complaints. He read it once more, and 2 days later he went back to that office bank. He added some money to get the amount to $7,450 and left. No complaints. Nothing. He went back 4 days later to update his booklet with recent account movements, and the system was paying $1 every day. Since he confirmed this, he went to the other banks he had accounts. He was a smart man and did not want to keep all his money in one place. But now he was on a revenge mission. He took out all his money from the other banks and went back and opened up 2 more accounts with that exact same amount. He also got the bank to pay those interest payments in a separate account, making sure that the amount was just right at $7,450. So he started getting $3, $1 per account, every day. That was in a period when he was getting paid about $7 a day for about 10 hours of work, or about 15, from his 2 jobs. This continued for so long that with time passing and him saving more, he managed to get up to 8 such accounts before they shut down that plan and changed it, according to him, that run for over 11 years. The way this worked was him pretty much netting a 5% interest rate of the stupidity and arrogance of the bank, just because most people had under $7,000 in savings. So everyone subscribed on that plan was getting robbed, whatever they were owed. He said that the interest rate fluctuated up and down a bit, so he ended up getting the amounts up at $8K, just so he would be losing money when the rate was falling lower. He said that according to his calculations he netted about $11,000 over what his money should have earned with that APY of 2.5%. TLDR. Long time ago, my grandfather opened a savings account at a bank with a daily interest payment. But bank was robbing people by rounding to whole numbers and paying $0 per day. So he calculated exactly what was needed to be earning 51 cents per day, so it would be round to $1, earning him double money, double effective interest rate. Sneaky. Surprised the bank did it that way though. They love to round things in their favor obviously, and not round whenever it suits them. This reminds me of a bank-related story of mine. I have an account at a bank that I don't use anymore. Let's call it National Bank, for the purposes of this story. There's just one monthly payment that goes through that account. So I just log in once a month to check it, and that's it. Some months ago, I was going to travel abroad and I recalled that National actually has good FX rates. So I logged in via the app and reserved hard currency that I had to pick up at my branch in up to 48 hours. If I didn't, the bank would automatically buy it back. So the next day, I went over to my branch to pick up the money. However, the teller told me I could not get it because my debit card had expired. It really had. It expired in 2020 and they never sent me a new one. That made absolutely no sense to me. I had given him proof of identity. I knew all the passwords to the account. They could even validate me with a fingerprint scanner. But I was basically locked out of my account. So I lost the deadline to get the currency from the branch. And they bought it back, at nowhere near the rate I paid for. So it was actually a small loss for me. Adding insult to injury, they charged me for a lost debit card when they finally issued one. The last card they had issued was literally in my hands. It was just expired. That was the last straw for me. I filed a complaint with the Financial Regulatory Agency, which resulted in me getting the fee back and National receiving a small fine for failure to provide adequate service. Turns out that holding people's money against their wishes is a big no-no. TL. Doctor. Bank tried to charge me a fee. Ended up having to reimburse me and pay a small fine. My grandfather was a MC type guy without knowing it. His was from the day when a bank would offer you $X for opening a new account but only give a 0.5% interest rate. So he'd open the account, use it lightly until the bonus hit, and then spend most of what was left. He'd put the book into his dresser and forget about it. Over 20 years, he amassed a lot. We understand that. In some cases, he'd use the free money from one to open another. When he passed away, this was discovered. A good portion of the banks had combined. Doing so reactivated the accounts and started them earning interest. Now, you'll ask, Why didn't the statements tell him us about these accounts? Well, see, in the mid-80s, the county, in its infinite wisdom, changed the name of the road. According to one banker, when the name was changed, the post office would update only what you would select to tell of the change. So if you didn't update your account, that was tough luck. So, having the statements returned, the banks would stop sending them and make the account dormant. But they'd get bought or merged. The account would get activated. Enough statements would get returned, and the account would go dormant only to repeat the process later on. And without a valid address. It wasn't like they could remind him of the account. According to his records, having been a bookkeeper, there's little doubt of his accuracy. None of the accounts were left with more than $1. All in all, he'd amassed enough money for Grandma to take the 9 of us out for a nice dinner in his memory. I had a similar thing happen. A local bank paid 5% on balances for a specific account under $5,000 balance. If you go above $5,000, the rate would drop to the regular 0.01% rate. At the time, this was a mega awesome rate. Inflation was less than 1% and rates on bank accounts were 0.01% everywhere. The catch: you could only deposit coins into this specific account. They did this because of a coin shortage in the city I was living in. They wanted to convince people to cash in their coin jars instead of using Coinstar. So, I started going to other banks, collected all their half-dollar rolls, checked all the half-dollar rolls for silver coins and put them in my coin collection. The remainder, put into that bank account. Oops, I was too good. Maxed out at $4,900 in deposits. So my wife opened up an account and I deposited to her account. Again, maxed out at $4,900. My kid opened up an account and I deposited to that account. Again, maxed out at $4,900. At the time I was out of work, so I found hundreds of silver coins and beefed up my coin collection and made nice money from all 3 accounts. Meanwhile, that bank was overloaded with half-dollars they could not use. Also, every 3 months I would ask for a withdrawal of interest to keep the balances under $5,000 to keep getting the good rates. About a year and a half later, I moved away and got a notice in the mail that a new bank took over that bank and that new bank discontinued the account offering. So I closed out all 3 accounts and asked them to send the cashier's checks to my new address. It was nice while it lasted. Quite cool how bank was rounding correctly instead of always rounding down. Just a small reminder. Please check if you are paying too much, not getting enough for your bank account. As the time of cheap money is over, there do exist savings accounts with interest rates north of 4%. If your bank does not offer you such interest rates and still insists on unnecessary fees, please search for other options. Of course, you will get the best options from direct banks, as they do not have to pay for physical branches. And for some people this might not be an option, but for many it can be at least an option for a second bank account. Wow, your grandfather was certainly clever in finding a way to outsmart the bank and make more money through their flawed system. It's frustrating how some institutions prioritize their own gain over their customers' interests. Math as a weapon. Wow, your grandfather's story of malicious compliance to the bank's arrogant savings plan is quite impressive. It's amazing how he managed to outsmart the system and earn double the interest rate by strategically manipulating his deposit amount. FYI, the dollar symbol, dollar, goes before the number, not after. Same with euros, British pounds, and most others. He maths. That was the most satisfying MC on this sub for quite a while. Hats off to your granddad. Well played by your grandfather. There's nothing like using a stupid company's poor logic against itself. Wow, your grandfather really showed that arrogant bank who's boss. It's impressive how he turned their rounding error to his advantage and earned double the interest. Revenge truly is sweet. Love this.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.